There are few things more mysterious and intriguing than wandering through the ruins of a decades or even centuries-old lost ghost town that seems to have been frozen in time. No, this footage is not from a movie, and yes, these types of places still actually exist. As a matter of fact, they're all over Texas, and today we're going to explore the top 10 ghost towns in the Lone Star State. Number 10. Aldridge, Texas. Deep inside the Angelina National Forest, sitting not too far from the Neches River, you'll find 4 massive structures under the thick forest canopy. These are part of the few ruins that still remain of the sawmill town of Aldridge, a now overgrown ghost town lost deep in the dense forest vegetation. In operation from 1905 to 1923, the Aldridge sawmill was once the pride of the town of Aldridge, its very reason for existing. Founded by Hal Aldridge in 1903, the Aldridge sawmill was complete and fully operational by 1905. By 1906, the town of Aldridge had a large commissary, a depot, a hotel, a dispensary, 2 churches, 2 schools, and 200 tenant houses. However, the town suffered one tragedy after another, including several catastrophic fires, to the point where Hal Aldridge felt compelled to give up on his venture and move to El Paso. Many of the town's residents gave up as well and moved away, seeking to rebuild their lives elsewhere. By 1925, the railroad tracks had been torn up and the entire site was abandoned for all time. Number 9. Old Bluffton Ghost Town. What if I told you that there's a little Atlantis right here in our very own state of Texas? In fact, there is. Buchanan Lake and its surroundings are known for their natural beauty, but below the lake's beautiful, idyllic surface also hides a dark, watery secret. There's an entire ghost town sitting at the bottom of the lake. Founded on dry land in 1852, this settlement, known as Bluffton, Texas, was one of the first towns ever founded in Texas Hill Country. Its post office was established in 1873, and by 1883, things were looking up for this modest but growing settlement. However, things began to change in the 1930s when President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal was pushed into effect. One of the projects that came along with the New Deal was Buchanan Dam, bringing electricity to the hill country. With progress, however, came sacrifice. The dam's completion effectively doomed the town of Bluffton, and families here had to begin preparing for the slow but inevitable rise of the water levels, which would gradually consume their homes, their town, and their very way of life. However, in 2009, an exceptionally severe drought dropped water levels of the lake to 26 feet, exposing long-lost tombstones and graveyards, the remains of a cotton gin, homes, a local bank, a hotel, and even a baseball field. Of course, the town's re-emergence was only temporary, and after the water levels gradually returned to normal, the ruins of Old Bluffton sank right back into the watery depths that they had risen from, fading away like a surreal, fantastic dream. Number 8. Texon, Texas. It's difficult to believe that, about 100 years ago, this was the epicenter of an oil boom, with the settlement housing a population of approximately 1,200. Located about 95 miles west of San Angelo, Texas, the town of Texon originated around May 28th of 1923, when oil was discovered in the area. The town was named for the Texon Oil and Land Company, which drilled the Santa Rita, the first successful oil well in the Permian Basin. On December 4th of 1928, Texon Oil discovered the Santa Rita University 1B, at that time the world's deepest well, at 8,525 feet. By now, Texon was considered a model oil community, and it boasted a post office, stores, shops, a school, a physician, a dentist, a hospital, a theater, a park, a well-known baseball team, and many facilities for recreation. As many as 2,000 people lived here. Eventually, Big Lake Oil Company was absorbed by Plymouth Oil Company, which, in turn, then sold out to Marathon Oil Company in 1962. Marathon Oil Company chose not to maintain Texon, which by that time was home to only about 100 residents. Finally, in 1986, the post office was closed, and the site of Texon remains all but abandoned up to this day. Number 7. Newgulf, Texas. The story of Newgulf begins in 1909, when the Gulf Sulphur Company was formed by a group of investors from St. Louis and Texas. The company was formed to exploit the newly discovered sulfur deposit in the Big Hill Salt Dome near Matagorda, Texas. Besides building a sulfur plant in 1928, the company also built an entire town for its employees and named it Newgulf, Texas. About 400 houses with 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms were constructed here and leased to employees. At the town's zenith, it had as many as 15 businesses. The population of Newgulf peaked in 1940 at 1,586. However, the Newgulf sulfur plant began to decline in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Already by 1956, the sulfur industry was producing more sulfur than it sold, 4 and sulfur prices had dipped, and Texas Gulf Sulfur had begun constructing several new plants elsewhere. This, combined with the 1957 United States recession, led to layoffs of Newgulf employees. Today, the Newgulf sulfur plant is all but abandoned, and its nearby former company town of Newgulf is now included in a long list of ghost towns scattered throughout the state of Texas. Number 6. Fowlerton, Texas. Fowlerton is named for two brothers who settled the community about 1910. By 1914, Fowlerton peaked in population at over 1,000 and had telephone service. The Fowler brothers had described themselves as colonizers and widely advertised the town. Things looked promising. They had a river for irrigation and a railroad to take produce to the market. By October of 1911, the town included 2 hotels and 3 stores, as well as telephones, miles of streets, and 1,200 Fowlerites. However, after 1917, a severe drought set the entire area behind, and people started moving to greener and wetter pastures. By 1925, the population had dropped to 600, and by 1931, only 6 businesses were open. Now, all that's left of this once up-and-coming town are a few rough streets and the abandoned ruins of a church, the school, and several crumbling homes. Number 5. Frio City, Texas. Deep in the vast, parched emptiness of the Texas desert lies a crumbling jail that housed many famous and infamous names, including Jesse and Frank James, Sam Bass, and O. Henry. But this isn't just a building. These are the remnants of an entire lost Texas ghost town named Frio Town, which was frequented at times by several historical characters, including the infamous Outlaws themselves, Bonnie and Clyde. Located 60 miles northwest of Pearsall, Texas, Frio Town, also known as Frio City before 1886, is a ghost town immediately south of the historical Presidio crossing on the Frio River. Frio City was originally laid out in 1871. The first Frio County courthouse was built in 1872, and on that same year, this now abandoned stone jail was also built. The jail eventually came to house several famed outlaws, such as Sam Bass, Jesse James, Frank James, and writer William Sidney Porter, also known by his pen name, O. Henry. Bonnie and Clyde are also known to have frequented the town to buy groceries and perform other errands, and it's said that their hideout was located nearby. By the 1880s, Frio Town was still thriving, with its population hovering close to 1,500. However, Frio City was bypassed by the railroad, a fatal blow from which it would never recover. By 1890, the population had fallen to 100, and by 1953, the town site was mostly abandoned. By 1990, all that remained of the once bustling Frio City was the Frio Town Cemetery and the ruins of the original courthouse and jail, as well as some foundations and stone chimneys of the homes of the original settlers. Number 4. Catarina, Texas. Welcome to the remains of another town forgotten by time. This is the ghost town of Catarina, Texas. The name of Catarina has been associated with the region since at least 1778. By 1910, there was a small community at the location. Soon, a bunkhouse, a commissary, a hotel, and a post office were built. In addition, a few blocks past the antique store is the partially overgrown Catarina School. By 1929, Catarina had between 1,000 and 2,500 residents, a bank, at least 2 grocery stores, a lumber company, and a bakery. However, short supplies of water, marketing problems, and the Great Depression slowly but surely drained the town's population. By 1931, the population had dropped to 592, and many of its businesses had been forced to close. By 1990, the population had dropped down even further to 45. Today, the town's main residents are only the deer, rabbits, snakes, and other wildlife that roam freely throughout the desolate dirt roads of Catarina. Number 3. Silver, Texas. Today, Silver is an unincorporated community in northwestern Coke County, Texas. Ominous, haunting, and bullet-riddled structures litter the area, with vegetation having almost completely engulfed many of the ruins. The silence is deafening. As a wandering observer, you could be totally forgiven for being in ignorance of this town's important past for the region. The story of Silver, Texas, begins with its founding in the 1870s as a humble ranching town. A Thomas J. Wiley established the first post office in 1890, and a one-room school opened in the community that same year. At this point, Silver was still a very small town on the map. However, in 1946, the Sun Oil Company discovered oil about a mile from the town's schoolhouse, and they moved quickly to cash in. By July of 1949, the company had established 59 producing oil wells in the Jameson oil field. Before long, Silver became one of the county's largest towns, with an estimated 1,000 residents, most of them living in camps established by the oil company. The small school was replaced by a $1 million complex, while the town also had 3 churches, a company recreation hall, 2 cafes, a gasoline station, and a grocery store. However, in the mid-1960s, oil production in the field began to decline, and the Sun Oil Company discontinued most of its operations in the area. Thus, slowly but surely, most of the houses and businesses at the town were deserted, left behind to be reclaimed and consumed by the elements. Number 2. Shafter, Texas. The ghost town of Shafter, Texas is a classic example of life after people, with dozens or even hundreds of crumbling buildings, roads, and mines hidden away in the wild mountains of West Texas, while being mercilessly reclaimed by the elements. Tucked away in the mountains about 18 miles north of Presidio, the town was founded before 1885. In the early 1900s, 6 silver mines were in operation near Shafter, while the town itself was booming, with a population as high as 4,000 in 1940. However, throughout the 1940s, local businesses faced increased production costs, a shortage of miners, and attempts to unionize the workforce, and they were eventually compelled to shut down their operation. Today, the site is all but abandoned. Many of the buildings, decades or even centuries old, seem to have been frozen in time, providing a stunning sight to behold as they blend in with the wild, rugged mountain ranges in the background, where a mountain lion or even a band of hostile outlaws would not seem entirely out of place. And finally, before revealing which ghost town topped our list, here are our honorable mentions. Number 1. Terlingua, Texas. Terlingua is a one-of-a-kind ghost town in the United States. In the mid-1880s, the discovery of cinnabar, from which the metal mercury is extracted, brought miners to the area, creating a city of 2,000 people. However, after falling prices forced the mines to close by 1947, the population fell dramatically. Nowadays, the only remnants of Terlingua's glory days are countless abandoned buildings, the Terlingua Cemetery, several abandoned mines, and the Villa de la Mina, an entire abandoned 62-acre settlement that was originally founded in the 1900s. Around the villa, you'll find the largest mine in the region, as well as about 20 buildings still standing, each one with rock walls and cement floors. Truly, the town of Terlingua is a place unlike any other, where you can go back in time and immerse yourself in a wilder era, and you can witness the settlers, outlaws, and cowboys of the Old West come back to life. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Please keep in mind that this isn't necessarily a list of all the abandoned ghost towns in Texas, just the top 10, in my opinion. Do you think I missed something? Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed the video and would like to explore along with me in my future adventures. I'll see you on the next one.